What's up, guys? This episode of the podcast is brought to you by HD Muscle. HD Muscle is more than a supplement company. They are a team of like-minded individuals who have come together to create a truly superior product line with zero compromises. In order to create the world's most premium supplement brand that is synonymous with today's top-level bodybuilders, athletes, and rising stars, HD Muscle had to step outside the normal parameters and practices of the industry. No limitations are placed on research or innovation when creating their superior product line. HD Muscle works with the most talented formulators and experts in the industry who share their core values, beliefs, and vision to create a line of products that can truly help you to push yourself past your limits and achieve your true potential. HD Muscle refuses to cut corners or limit their creativity based on monetary restrictions. HD Muscle will never sacrifice results for profit or promote an inadequate product. Integrity is everything. For free shipping right now on orders over $99, head over to www.hdmuscle.com and use the discount code HELLRUNE at the checkout. To stay updated on the latest news and releases from HD Muscle, follow at hd.muscle on Instagram. My guest today is an IFBB Pro bodybuilder who has overcome significant adversity and is now just 8 weeks out from the prestigious Arnold Sports Festival, South America, to showcase his return to the professional bodybuilding stage. Give it up for IFBB Pro, Antoine Vaillant. And 3, 2, 1. Antoine, how you doing, brother?
I'm good. You?
Good. I just, first of all, I want to say thank you for taking the time to come onto the podcast right in the middle of a prep for a pretty serious contest, something called the Arnold. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that one, but yeah, I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time to talk to me, because I know you got so many new projects and stuff like that going on, which I'm really interested in talking about. So, so right now you're about 8 weeks out from the Arnold South America. Is that correct?
Yeah, precisely today, 8 weeks out. Yep.
Right on. And so it was about 9 months ago or so, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but about 9 months ago, you had a pretty serious bicep tear on your left arm. Is that correct?
It was on my right arm.
The right arm.
But yeah, the scars right here, one
Jesus.
here, one there. What happened is that I was 2 weeks out from the New York Pro, training hard and stuff, and then the gym just kind of opened up, and there was a bunch of stuff around, and I tried to move some metal plates, some sheets that you know to put on the wall, like not checker plate, but another type of thing, and it was budging up because it was bendy, so I thought I could move it. So I my arms were extended. I tried to nudge it on the left. And then my right bicep, it just like I heard a Velcro sound. Oh. And then it just snapped. And I held my arm and I fell on the ground. And right away, the most painful thing wasn't the physical pain. It was the fear that all the work that I did in the past year was put in the garbage. And I had no idea what was going on. Was my whole career over? Was this thing like as I was freaking out? So it was pretty scary. And I did the MRI. Then the next day I went to the doctor. The next day after that, I did the MRI in Buffalo. I went to the private one in Buffalo because you could just pay $500 and just get it.
Right.
In Canada, you have to wait for a long time.
Right.
And so there was only one thread remaining. The whole tendon snapped, and the bicep went up a few, like 2 inches up.
Jesus.
And the bruising.
Did it do the whole? It bounced up, and you could see it kind of bulge up like into a ball at the top.
It didn't go all the way up because there was a little thread that was holding on the bone.
Right. Oh my God.
Kind of like it was a full rupture. The doctor says a full rupture,
right?
But it didn't roll up all the way. It just rolled up a little bit, and you could really see. I have a whole series on YouTube about it. I actually even filmed the day of the tear. I filmed me and my friends. I was on the couch. I tried to understand what was going on. And it was very scary. I had no
Right.
idea what the future was holding at this point.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that and mention that because I watched that YouTube video right when it came out, and I think you're with Dorian and Frank McGrath, and yeah, just watching that video was gut wrenching, man. Because I was just you were so just to kind of rewind a little bit, you were in the middle of another prep at that point as well. After taking a break from the stage, and then you're kind of working your way back to coming to the stage, and at that point, you were looking probably the best that you'd ever looked.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, just watching that video and like you could just hear the devastation of like the unknown and the fear and that kind of thing, just what was going to happen. Right. Cause it's like, to a lot of people, especially, just people who are kind of avid gym goers, they might not even be a professional or this might not be their career or anything like that. But, I know what that's like to just have an injury and not be able to go and go to the gym and satisfy myself with that and get that release every week. But for you, it's a completely different thing. Like this is also your job. So what was kind of going through your mind and the kind of emotions and things like that while you're kind of sitting there getting a bit of support from your friends, but obviously having your own questions in your mind, like, yeah, that's great, guys. Appreciate the support, but like, I might be fucked right now.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, like at that moment, Dorian was telling me, like, don't make you up your mind with anything. Let's do the MRI. Let's see the doctors, see what they say. But in my head, I was like, what's going on right now? It's like and there was a moment where, of course, it's weird because it's like, when somebody dies, you go through like the grief. There's like a part where you don't accept the situation, and you're like, no. And I was like that for a little bit the first day, and then I just came to accept the situation. And then my mindset got pretty good pretty quick because of my past with my other struggles I had. I learned a lot of coping skills, and I learned acceptance. I learned to surrender. And I've used that with this. And so I told myself, okay, the situation is this right now. I can't change it. What can I do? And the only thing I could do is just my best to deal with it. Mm-hmm. So I said, dwelling on it is not going to help. Doing the best that I can do to get better, this is what I need to focus on. So that's what I did.
Right.
I just focused on what I need to do to make this, to fix it up. To do the next step was the next step. Going to the doctor was the next step. MRI was the next step. This and that. And 2 days after the tear, or maybe the next day, I don't remember, I was in the gym doing legs with a freaking sling. Because I was like, you know what? I also learned with that injury that I was taking like a training for granted. Because there's a lot of things we take for granted every day that we don't think to give thanks. We don't think that it's a blessing. Like just walking, just be able to train 100%, all these things. And then I told myself, you know what helped me in the past is gratitude. So I told myself, well, what can I do? What do I have? I have my mind. I have my left arm. I have my legs. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to go to the gym and work out. I'm not going to stop working out because of this. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to keep going. So even before the surgery or after the surgery, I just didn't stop going to the gym. I would train my legs twice a week instead of one. And then I would do upper body pull on the left and upper body push on the left.
Wow. Yeah. Cause you had kind of alluded that you had taken that inspiration, I think, from Dorian Yates, because he basically did the exact same thing. There's all those crazy pictures from him from I think the 80s or the 90s where he's in the fucking hack squat with his arms strapped up, still going 100%. So yeah, it's kind of interesting because it's like there's these guys that are kind of there for us to draw inspiration and like motivation and fuel from and things like that. And now you're kind of one of those guys, especially with such a big following and even just with your other peers and stuff like that. Because I'm sure, you're not the only one that is experiencing an injury like this or has experienced an injury like this where they're facing sort of the unknown circumstances of their future career. And you're kind of showing them that like, no, fuck this. Like, you don't need to be a victim of your circumstances. You can work with whatever you have and kind of find a new day one and find a new goal and kind of just dig deep to kind of find this willpower to be grateful for your situation and still be looking to the next thing. And you can see that even just in the results of what seems like has been a pretty quick recovery. I mean, I remember watching that video, and I remember seeing you kind of going through the recovery process and things like that. And I think it was maybe like a month or two ago, you were almost at what I think was your heaviest, at 330 pounds or 333 pounds, something like that.
I went up super high because of my injury. Then when I could start training properly, I only had like in my head like 3 months to get back to gain some muscle back before starting the prep. So I just decided to eat as much food as I could. I was eating like a pound of rice with every meal, and I would drink apple juice on top of that, and I would have a few cheat meals a week. And I just I just understood what the strongmans are doing, because the strongmans, like for example Thor or Brian Shaw, they were 300 pounds at some point. And what do you think they did to get to 400 something? They just ate their way up there. That's what they did. They just ate their way up there. They just put the training, forced their body to adapt to what they're doing, right? And then they put all the food, they overcompensate with the food, and then they just gained weight and muscle.
Right.
So that's what I did. I would have not went heavy like that if I didn't have the injury, because I would have taken my time. Like, I'm not going to go back to 330 next off season. I'd like to just be 300 but leaner, because I don't know. I mean, I did it because I was catching up in my head. I don't know if it was worth it or not, but right now I'm at my best ever. I'm bigger than last year, even if I had the tear.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing too, because it's like for the people that haven't kind of followed your career, haven't followed you over the last year, that are listening to this, I really urge them to go and watch all of that, all of the YouTube videos of you kind of tracking your recovery, because it was insane to just see how much the muscle atrophied, not being able to train and being in a sling, and just, you know, you're looking at the contrast between the two arms that you had, and it was almost like comical. It was like a caricature of a bodybuilder, because you've got this gigantic fucking arm. I don't know how big your arms were. I think 22 inches or 23 inches. I'm not sure what it was. And then you've got your other arm that's, you know, it's like the
lowest it went, it was I couldn't even flex it because it wasn't working. It was 18.2 inches. I think is the lowest it went.
That's crazy.
So I had 18.2 on this one, and this one I had like 21 something. And it just was so like weird. And there's a picture I put on my Instagram where because of it was swollen, and I had the sling where it would have like 3 straps, but the straps, because of the water retention, would make like lumps in my arm.
Yeah.
It was so beat up, and then the scar I had here was like, they had like a little infection, so there was a lump there. It was like my arm was a mess.
Yeah. Yeah, it was because I mean, I think you posted a video of it today. That might have been the video that I saw before. But yeah, you had this big like growth on the bottom of the bicep where it connected the forearm, and it was just like how concerned were you with being able to get back to symmetry with that bicep after seeing how fucked up it got after the sort of periods of training and the surgery, and I think you had an infection at one point. It's just like everything seemed like it was going wrong to like now be back where you are, heavier, you know, looking lean as fuck 8 weeks out from a show. It's just, what were you concerned at all that bicep wasn't going to match up and that was going to kind of affect your future performance?
I was concerned, but I have also learned, and people reached out to me, that there's a lot of pros that people don't even know they tear their bicep. Dexter Jackson tore his bicep. People don't know that. Cedric McMillan tore his bicep. People don't know that. Lee Priest tore his bicep. People don't know that.
Yeah, some of the best, like Lee Priest is one of the best pair of arms of all time.
Yeah, some people told me like, hey, maybe your peak's going to be better after. I'm like, really? Because one of them told me like, oh, I wish I could tear my other arm like that. I even asked a surgeon to if you could do the surgery just to make the tendon like longer or shorter or something, so you have a better peak. I'm like, this guy's nuts. But
because the muscle has to shorten, right? Because they're
Well, I think I might have it's very similar to before, because before my right one was not as peaky as my left anyway.
Right.
So yeah, sometimes I look at pictures, I'm like, my right bicep wasn't as big as my left before. And because of that, now I look at all the front double biceps of everybody, and I look at the biceps, because now I notice stuff. And I notice there's not one guy that has this 2 arms that look the same exactly.
Yeah.
So I know that right now, like today I did arms. I had 20, like pumped up because I'm dieting, it's a little bit smaller. I had 21.3, 21.2, I think, my bad arm, and my good arm was 21.5. 0.6.
Right.
So it's only 0.3, 0.4 like before. Before I told my arm, I had 0.4 difference.
Right.
It's pretty much the same as before. The only thing I've noticed is that I just don't have as much thickness on the outer part. If I would put both my arms like that, I don't have as much thickness for now. It might come back. Because the doctor said it might take a year for full size to come back.
Yeah, I mean, that's the crazy thing is it's only been a few months. Like you haven't even hit the 1 year mark, and you're already
the 1 year mark. Because I got a calendar here. It's going to be like May. I think May 4th. I tore my bicep. So it's like 10 months ago.
Yeah. See, not even a year, and that's what it's one thing to like heal an injury properly, but to then bulk up to 330 pounds and then diet down and be in shape for a show and everything be looking proper is like a pretty incredible feat. And I was kind of curious because with you having gone and been only training one side of your upper body, was there any, because I don't know much about this, was there any scientific benefit, or I guess from a muscular development or maintenance benefit to you actually training one side at a time?
Yeah, I actually read on it. People mentioned to me. It's relatively new studies, I think, unless I'm mistaken. But nature likes symmetry. Like nature in general, like you never see a tree growing more on one side than the other, unless there's something blocking the way. But it's always a nice shape, and everything's like is the same. The leaves are like just nice, symmetrical. All the animals are kind of symmetrical in the middle, right? So the body likes the nature likes symmetry. So even if you would, let's say, if you would only train you never trained before, you only train one side, you're gonna have 20% growth on the side you don't train.
Just by the kind of like mind-muscle connection, wanting things to match.
It's just the body's adapting. The body doesn't just grow on the side you train. The body grows a little bit on the other side too. It's like you're stimulating the body with exercise and weights, and the body just adapts. So the next time it's easier for the body to do it. That's how it works. That's how training works. So I guess the body just like, hey, you worked a lot on that side. I'm just going to make the other side buff too. So it's actually easier to deal with those situations there. But I did it because I heard that it's going to help me keep the size on my right a little bit. So I wasn't afraid of training my left. I trained my left the whole time. I would do like one arm rows. I would do a bunch of stuff. I would do one arm presses, and I would just do the whole left side. And I think it helped because if I look at my recovery, I think it was pretty quick. That's what people say. Like you say that, and I think the things I've done worked. I guess eating and going up over 300 pounds plus training my left side and doing all the things I did probably helped. The only thing I was very cautious is that all the curling stuff and the underhand stuff for back, it took a while for me to go heavy. So I trained super light for a while for back and the biceps. But I think training light made me practice the contraction more.
Right.
Because now if you compare my back this year compared to my back last year, I improved my back a lot. It's probably one of the body parts I improved the most. So it's weird.
With an arm and a sling. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I think what happened is that that injury made me better mentally and made me better bodybuilder. because I just learned to train a bit lighter. And now I'm also training lighter than before. Like when I was like early 20s, I was moving so much more weight than now. I'm stronger now, but I was moving more weight back then. But now I'm more like, I just feel everything more. It's like when I squeeze the back and stuff, I figured out how to train my back this year. Before that, I would think I would training it, but I wasn't properly activating all the back muscles. So now I just got better at it, and maybe that's because I train lighter because of the bicep.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Because I mean, I experienced a shoulder injury last year as well, and I ended up actually tearing the trap off of the AC joint. And it's kind of humbling because it's like when you're so used to just, you know, if you're somebody that kind of has that mindset of like, you know, you go hard every time, you kind of push yourself to the limit, push yourself to the max every workout, like that's deeply psychologically satisfying. But sometimes you can actually miss a lot of things because you're so focused on just more weight, you know, get it off the ground or put as much on as you can. And you're pushing yourself in one way, but then you're kind of missing other things, like you were kind of saying, like the mind muscle connection and really contracting the muscle. And especially, you know, with bodybuilding and things, bodybuilding specifically, you know, dropping the weight down, and you can actually feel at that lighter weight some of the subtle things that you're doing wrong, because you don't have to focus so much on just powering through and getting the reps out, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, in bodybuilding, the goal is kind of like to isolate that a certain muscle or muscle group, and you want to reach failure on it, and you don't need heavy weight to do that. So I can, if I'm training a body part, I can use, for example, even legs. I can do that now. I can reach failure with 10 plates aside. I can reach failure with 6 plates aside. It doesn't matter because I just know how to activate my legs more. For back, it's the same thing. For chest, the same thing. I've been pushing a little bit more weight lately because when I'm leaner for some reason, my mechanics are just so much better. So I'm more comfortable pushing heavy weight. But other than that, I'm always, because of my injury now, I'm always asking, do I really need to go that heavy right now to reach my goal of reaching failure and creating muscle growth? And sometimes I just back down the weight. Because I'm smarter now and I'm more careful. Because when you have an injury like that, even though I wasn't training doing it, I still think about it every workout. But and at first it was scary because I was like, am I always going to be scared to move weight around? But with time and stuff, I really took my time for anything involving the bicep. Maybe more than people think. People say, oh, wow, yeah, I got a good injury. You got a good recovery. You're doing curls now, the preacher. But you didn't see the curls I was doing with 20 pounds for 2 months.
Yeah, exactly.
People don't know that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a good transition into my next question, because I really wanted to kind of get into the whole recovery process and kind of what it actually took to get you back to where you were. I mean, it seems like a quick process, but to you, when you're going through the day-to-day, hour by hour, babying that arm and having, limited mobility, being limited on your training and things like that, maybe you can kind of start from the beginning and just kind of walk us through what it actually took and some of the rehab that you had to do to get your arm back to where it is 9 months later.
Yeah. So at first I wouldn't touch it. And then I would just train my left side and my legs. But I'm just going to talk about what I did for the bicep, I guess. I had the little clicker here on the sling, and I would just every few days I would give myself more range of motion. But it would keep my arm from going too fast. But it didn't take too long that I wouldn't use a sleeve anymore. I would just I would put it to the maximum, so it doesn't if you fall or something, it just protects. But it was kind of a shitty sling, so I was just careful, right? And then at some point, I would just remove the sling and I would just try to stretch my arm, and it would hurt. I think it was hurting because of the scarring in there. It wasn't necessarily maybe the tendon that was tight. Yes, it was probably tight, but it was hurting on the stitches and all that stuff. But yeah, so at first I was just doing range of motion stuff. And then after that, when I could lock the elbow, because the first time I went to the doctor after having a sling, he said, "Oh," I just opened up my arms. "Oh, you're good, I guess." I think because I've always been active in my life. When you're an athlete and stuff, you recover way faster than some guy who just works on a computer from 9 to 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, if you're somebody active, you get better recovery. But after that, what I did is I did some physio a little bit, but that was pretty much useless. She would just make my arm move, and I was like, I'm doing that at home. So I spent some money on that for 4 weeks just because the doctor told me. But after that, I stopped going. But what I would do is I would also just hold my arm and do a little bit of isometrics. That's the first thing I did. I would just hold my arm like that. It just kind of flex a little bit, just like just gentle pressure. Just try to activate it and flex it. Right. And then after that, I would just do a little bit stronger, and then I would do hand stuff. Do I have the ball here? Oh yeah, right here. It's like you put the fingers in there, and then you do the extension. I do this. I would squeeze the ball. I would do that stuff. I would buy the asparagus, like rubber bands, and just do the extensions like that.
Right.
And I would do it as I would unbend my arm, just try to move it around. And after a little bit, I would be able to carry stuff in the house, just like cook with my right hand. That was such a relief to be able to use my right hand. Imagine if you always wipe your ass with your right, and now you have to do it with your left. It's like just little things like that. It's just
yeah.
Then you relearn how to use your right arm. It's like, wow, then you're so happy you can just use it. So my perspective on changed a lot about just little things. But after that, what I did is I would go in the gym. I would go with a dumbbell on the preacher, and I would just do 90 degrees, just hold the dumbbell for 1 minute, 2 minutes or something. It would be like a 10-pound dumbbell at first, even 5 pounds, and then 10 pounds, 15 pounds, 20 pounds. And I would give myself a little bit more bend like that, and I would just do that for my right arm. When I would do arms with the left, I would superset the left with stuff on the right like that. That was the first thing I did. And then I started doing curls with 5 pounds. And then I would go to 10 pounds, and and every week I would add like 2.5 pounds. And I would really try to focus. Is it hurting right now? Is it bad? But yeah, I really took my time, because some guys I was talking to, like Cedric McMillan, like he said 3 weeks later, he would be doing curls with 30 pounds.
Wow.
He even said like, oh, you might feel a pop in there, but that's normal. So I was like, I'm not going to listen to him. He's just maybe a genetic freak. So I really took my time. And then after that, I just don't know the timeline, but I think after 3 months, I was able to somewhat get a nice little pump on the right arm, curling 20s or something. I really took my time. And then as I was listening to my body, I would add a little bit of weight. And the funny thing is that my tricep got smaller too for some reason. Even though I could train it, it got smaller. I don't know if it got back to the size that it was before. But the tricep got affected also. Even though I didn't injure it because it was inactive, it just went small. But I would train the tricep harder than the bicep, of course. But I think like now I could do underhand pull downs now. I can do deadlifts. I can do heavy rows with 150s and 160s. I'm pretty good. But the only thing that took a while is anything that's like super supinated and isolated.
Right.
I can still, and sometimes I still feel it. It's funny because you don't feel it in the bicep. You feel like on the bone, and on your forearm bone.
Where it's kind of attached, like where the tissue's attached, yeah.
I guess so, because this is where it hurts. It doesn't hurt the bicep. It hurts like a little numbing, like bruising pain sometimes.
Right.
And like today I was feeling it a little bit. Oh, okay, I feel it. So I just went down in weight. I think it's just, it's not a risk of injury waiting to happen. It's just, I guess, tightness because of the injury, right? It's like if you hurt yourself, you might be hurting for a little while, So that's why I ask guys to scrape and massage and do therapy on it, just for blood flow and stuff. But but now I'm pretty good. Well, I started with just isometrics, then super light curls, and then I would gradually increase and try to get a pump. I would always try to get a pump with the minimal weight possible. Then I would go up, and what did I curl? I mean, I don't really curl that heavy anymore. I think I curled 70 pounds. I can go 70 pounds now, but I used to be able to just swing.
That's still a lot more than the average person's curling in the gym, right?
When I was younger, I would just swing the hundreds up like Kevin LeBron, right? But, now, yeah, but I've actually done 90 pounds upright rows just like last week.
Right.
So the strength is back. It's just I feel it when I'm isolating and doing a lot of supination on the preacher and the machines.
Right.
This is where I feel like my left, I can like curl fast and strong. This one is like, there's still something there.
Yeah, the mobility is still trying to catch up to the strength. Yeah, I guess it's like it just, to me it seems like such a psychological thing too, because you, in the back of your mind, you spend almost 2 years, I think, training and prepping for that last competition, then to kind of have it scooped out from under you, and then to be kind of back where you are, feeling good, like you were saying, appreciating the simple things, like just being able to reach into the microwave or the cupboard or whatever with your good hand. So it's got to be just kind of that fear of like, you feel a little something, you're like, oh God, it's like you never quite psychologically get back to that place where you're 100% sure of that muscle. Whereas before, you kind of feel invincible until you're not invincible, until you experience that injury. Then it's kind of always in the back of your head. It's like, well, I may look like I'm carved out of stone, but I'm really not. I'm still human. I can have these injuries, and just when you work so hard for that long, to have that kind of setback, it would be really difficult, I think, to kind of get that out of your head, especially when a job like this or a career like this requires maximum effort.
Well, I mean, now I think it's better now to be a little bit afraid than not being afraid before, because nobody's invincible. And I felt like I was, but that was maybe a mistake. I would have not maybe moved that stuff on the ground thinking I could do it. Maybe I would just said like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to risk it because I know I'm not invincible. Mm-hmm. So I think my mindset is better now. Maybe I'm a little bit afraid, but what fear does in nature, it keeps things alive. Like deers are afraid of wolves for a good reason, because wolves kills them. So a little bit of fear is not bad if it's a healthy fear, and it just makes you a bit smarter. You train smarter. And one thing for sure is I'm more aware of what's going on in my body. Like all the little aches and pains, I'm just aware of it now, and I don't push through them, because when I was younger, if I had a bad shoulder, like, last week I did the 130s, I got to do them again. And I would just try to like jimmy myself up with the dumbbells. When in reality now, if something's wrong, like I'm not going to do dumbbell presses, I'll do the like front raises or something. Mm-hmm. I just switched it up. So I think the injury made me train smarter now, even though like there's a little bit of fear in there, but I don't think that's bad.
Yeah, you can kind of, I guess, you're more focused on longevity now, right? Because you kind of had that little moment there, I guess, where all of this could go away. So you kind of now have, I guess, that mindset where you are really cherishing like what you've accomplished, and you've cherishing what you've built, and you're really kind of taking that extra care with your body, because you realize that is so fragile and everything can be taken away. So it's almost like you're kind of now you're really going to maintain this vehicle moving forward, because you're like, well, I know where I don't want to be, and I know that I want to be able to do this for the next 10, 15, 20 years. So you kind of take a step back and focus on other things so that you can keep doing it. Because you see so many guys that do have that hyper motivated kind of hardcore mentality when it comes to training, and they're always the ones to end their career early.
Well, a good example is pretty easy. If you look at Dexter Jackson, Sean Roden, for example, mm-hmm. You think that they're trained by Charles Glass, and it's not a lot of big heavy weight moved around in a jerking manner. It's all like just pump stuff, isolation, some funky angles, and they don't look like they train hard from somebody who's like watching Brent Warren train, for example, and Johnny Jackson or Ronnie Coleman. But the thing is, Dexter's going to be 50 and he's still competing. He was the best of the world 20 years ago, and he's still one of the best of the world right now. Sean Roden, he's like almost 50 also. He's like 46 or something. I don't know. But all those guys who people say they're lazier and don't train as hard in the gym, they're the one just outlasting everybody else. Then you look at Ronnie, who just heavy on everything, past failure, just like crazy workouts. I don't know if you ever watched the Unbelievable DVD.
Yeah.
He's rolling 5 plates. That was a normal thing for him, squatting like 6 plates on front squats. But then what happened? He's like, yeah, it got him best in the world, but then he's all broken now. Yeah. And for him, it's still worth it though. But it's like, if you train like a maniac for too long, the body can only withstand so much. But then if you train like Dexter or Sean Roden, more like pump stuff, just like listening to the body, you know, like just more laid back. Those laid back guys they have better longevity. So it's like you got to find a balance. Like, you know, like me, I like to train hard, but now I got to do more smart stuff. I can't just be trying to row 4 or 5 plates. Because it's funny because there's a video on my YouTube, one of the oldest videos I put there. I was 20 years old and I was rowing 500 pounds. I was like, I look at myself moving the weight. I was like, how was I so strong? It was all like just jerk motion. Yeah. But still, I was like, I don't even know if I could do that right now.
Right.
But back then, it's all I did, so I was used to that. But that I was more in pain in the shoulders and all those things, the lower back, when I was younger than now. Now it's more like just little things like my right ankle, I have a sinus tarsi, it just keeps dragging on. I got my left elbow sometimes, but I don't feel it lately. I have a hard time twisting on the right because of something in the back here. And my left IT band and my left hip, I think, is because when I do deadlifts and stuff, I put weight on the left because my ankle hurts. There's that. So it's just little injuries like that, but nothing that's keeping me from training.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. It's I think the Ronnie Coleman story is a good example, but it's also, you know, it's a really sad story too, because you see this guy that literally sacrificed everything, including his body, to be the greatest in the world and maybe arguably the greatest of all time. But then you see him now, you know, surgery after surgery after surgery after surgery. And, you know, it's just what it's done to his life and the longevity of life and maybe even the quality of life. Like you said, it's probably worth it to him. And I don't think people outside of the bodybuilding community can really connect with that or even understand that mindset of wanting to be a champion so bad that you would give anything. But, you know, like you were saying, like, I think the situation with like Sean Roden and Dexter Jackson, it's like people gave Sean Roden so much shit at that guest posing you did, the famous guest posing where he was just, you know, people said he was so out of shape. But to me, it kind of makes sense. You know, he is getting older. He's got a family, he's got kids and stuff like that. So to kind of step back and let the body heal and like maybe take a break from training if you need to, or even take a break from the drugs or lowering the doses on the drugs so that your body can handle this and you can keep doing this and be an Olympia contender at the top level for years to come, like Dexter. You know, it's just, it's so obvious what the better route is to go if you want to do this long term. If you don't want to just be, you know, kind of like have the glory and then, you know, you spend the rest of your life in a chair, right?
Yeah. Well, those guys have been training for like years and years, and now they have the size they want. And then they can just like, they can take a break like that. They can take a break off training. They can take a break off the juice there, and then they look like that. But once they start, like Sean Roden makes amazing transformation every time. People are always like, oh my God, he looks like shit. And then he shows up and he's like, what the hell? He's like top of the world, you know? So he's doing something right. The only thing is that I would have told the promoter, I don't think I'm going to be able to guest pose. But I think that show, it was in Pittsburgh. They all have to do it because it's the Manions own it.
Right.
So you
Yeah.
want to make them happy, right? So
Yeah.
that's why they I think they don't have a choice to do it. But yeah, like those guys, they might not look as good in the off season, but they're already in the shape they need to be in the top of the world. So a lot of them, they don't really want to add more size than they have, because in the off season, this is where you can pack a lot of size when you eat a lot of food. But Ronnie tried to do that his whole career. Never backed down. And the thing with Ronnie is, I'm pretty sure that he would have still won 8 Mr. Olympias if he trained like Dexter or Sean. Because there's nobody that had genetics like that.
No, not even close.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody. So he would have maybe been even better. Who knows? Because sometimes you would see like he would like after his like back was all like messed up. He huge back, but you would see he looked so tight when he would do her last spread, or there was a bunch of stuff that like Ronnie, you could tell is he was putting his body through so much hardcore training. But if he trained like with Charles Last or like Dexter and Sean Roden, maybe he could have got another Olympia. Who knows?
Well, the craziest thing too is like, we keep mentioning Dexter, but it's wild because Dexter competed against Ronnie, Dexter competed against Phil, and Dexter's still competing against a new generation of bodybuilders that's coming through. So it's kind of just like a testament to like Dexter's greatness. Because when I was a kid, he was easily one of my favorite bodybuilders. Just as far as aesthetics go, at that size, there was nobody that looked that good at that size. There were guys who were obviously way bigger and freakier, but he still looks just as good as he did 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
I know, it's crazy because I started training in 2004 in a gym. And when I first joined, there was like a magazine, Muscular Development magazine. It was a review of the 2003 Miss Olympia. So even before I started training, I saw Dexter in the top 6 of the world. And now I'm going to compete against him. And he's the one who won the most shows ever by far. I think he won like almost 30 shows, plus the Olympia. He won both Arnold Classics. The only one he didn't win is the Brazil one that he's going against me. Right. So I'll be competing against this legend.
Yeah,
there's a part of me that's really happy, but there's a part of me that's like, oh, really? I was hoping I could have the chance to win this one. But who knows what's going to happen. But, of course, Dexter, his record is just like so good that he's one of the hardest guys to beat on a circuit.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because it's a strange feeling, I think, when your heroes suddenly become your peers. Obviously, I haven't experienced that in sport, but I'm a professional musician. I play in some metal bands and things like that. And just going and playing your first show opening for your favorite band of all time. That was something I experienced a couple of years ago. And now I've played shows and even made friends with a lot of guys that I never thought that I would be able to talk to on a personal level or a one-on-one level. And so now, like, how is that for you, going from being a young bodybuilder and then getting to this place where you're going to go and stand on stage with somebody that you were idolizing in magazines when you were a kid?
Well, I'm really happy that I get to compete with him because it's his last year competing.
Wow.
So it's pretty cool that I'll be able to compare myself with the Mr. Olympia on stage. So, yeah, so we'll see how that goes. But I'm just very happy. And I did compete 2 years ago at the Toronto Pro 2018. And I was against Juan Morel, Akeem, and there was Cedric McMillan. I was there also, the 3 guys who beat me. So it was cool. They're big names, but Dexter Jackson is one of the biggest names in the sport. So that's pretty cool. I'll be able to just be backstage and pump up with him and stuff. Because when I started out, when I was 16 at my first show, like all those guys were in such a distant world kind of thing. But now it's like I'll be against them. So it's pretty – and it gives also hope to everybody, like all the kids like watching this or – scrolling the Instagrams and looking at like me and whoever else. It's like it's not impossible for them to just work their way up if they have the genetics and the hard work and discipline to compete against, So it just makes me realize that, there's a lot of things possible in life if you just work hard at something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's inspiring because that you just touched on it, and it's kind of like this thing that I think the average person gets if they're in a circumstance where maybe they don't think that they're doing a lot with their life, or maybe they don't think that they're as accomplished as they would like to, and that these people that are kind of hyper successful or competing at high levels or are super famous, or even your boss at your shitty job seems so outside of your realm that you have nothing in common. There's nothing relevant in your lives that you could connect over, because it's just seems like a different world. But to me, what it really is just a matter of is, if you really do want something that bad, it's just time and effort and education and just continuing to work towards that goal and not give up. And that's pretty much the case for everybody that gets into this position where people are admiring them for their accomplishments. Like, everybody started out as a regular person at some point and just decided they weren't going to stop there at being regular.
Yeah. I always think that it's good to have aspirations, but we shouldn't put people like on such a pedestal that they're unattainable. Like, I'm always saying in my head is like, I wonder if Arnold Schwarzenegger ever did, because I see people lining up to meet people at the expos, long lineups, 2 hours to meet a certain person. That's great. I'm not against it, but in my head, I'm like, I wonder if Arnold Schwarzenegger was waiting 2 hours in line to meet like his idol, or he was too busy creating the line. Right? So it depends where you put yourself. Like, it's good to have inspiration, but I'm never going to put myself lower than these guys. And now the proof is there. I'm going to compete beside them. So it's good to have inspiration, but that doesn't mean that you should put yourself lower than they are in your head. That's what I believe in. Yeah.
I think that's 100% true, because you can never really get to that place where you're standing on the stage with Dexter Jackson if you don't have that self-confidence and that belief in yourself that something is attainable. If you just think that these people are privileged, or these people have something that I could never have, and so I'm not even going to bother trying. Well, that's going to be your outcome then, right? If you don't believe that you have the potential, and you don't put in the effort, and you don't have that image of yourself being on the same level of these kind of people, of course you can never get there, because your mindset is so much of, being at this level versus being at this level. It's that self-confidence and that self-belief to keep kind of pushing through and having the willpower to just, it's coming for me. Like, it's going to happen for me. I just need to keep working. But people, I think, lack so much patience when it comes to that sort of thing. And I think bodybuilding, especially professional bodybuilding and open bodybuilding specifically, that's why it's so outside of the realm and understanding of the average person, because it seems like such a strange thing to people, because what's required to get to that level is extraordinary, is what I'm trying to say. Because, with the dieting and the training regimen, and even just all these extra things that you're talking about, like, the average person isn't going and spending 2-3 hours a day in additional rehab to make sure their body is functioning optimally, so they can then go for a 1 hour workout, and then spending another 4 hours a day eating. It's so extreme that I think the average person just can't understand that. And so I also think that this is a big reason why athletes, especially pro athletes, have maybe not an easier time, but are better at dealing with challenges in life outside of their sport. especially a guy like you who's already shown that. We've talked about your injury that you dealt with, and now you're back in a position where you're going to be competing at the highest level in the world. But I wanted to ask you if bodybuilding and everything that kind of goes into being a professional bodybuilder at that level has translated over to some of the other challenges in your life and getting through these setbacks and kind of moments that would probably be devastating and maybe even career ending or even life ending for some people that just can't handle that kind of disappointment.
Okay, you're back. You can cut out. Yeah, well, actually, yeah, it's good. Actually, I think any sport where you can lose and you learn how to deal with failure and come back from that, you're going to be able to deal with life better. So if there's some kids who never lost anything, or they, sometimes they try to do that. They don't count points now in some of the baseball matches in the States. I heard about that. No, the kids need to learn how to lose. Mm-hmm. Then they can deal with failures in their lives better, because it's never going to be always like perfect. Mm-hmm. So I think bodybuilding helped me create a lot of discipline, but it's kind of like the other way around a little bit. It's because of my drug addiction before, how low I got, the 4 rehabs I did. Dealing with that actually is now making my preps, bodybuilding preps, so much easier. Mm-hmm. Like dealing with my bicep tear and dealing with the daily hunger of a low-calorie deficit prep when you have low body fat is easy compared to what I did, mm-hmm. compared to what I had to overcome against like a drug addiction and the spiritual disease I had. That was hard. Mm-hmm. Like prep, like all those tools I used to cope with. I used to cope with life after stop using drugs. Well, now I can use that on a daily to deal with either whatever struggle I have and the diet. Because seriously, like the bicep tear was a piece of cake to overcome compared to what I overcame before. Mm-hmm. So the rehabs, the fact that I hit bottom so many times and lost everything, like literally, that made my bodybuilding so much easier. Because sometimes people, they say on the Instagram, oh, like the suffering of prep, I'm suffering so much. No, that's not suffering. Mm-hmm. That's not suffering. I've seen misery and pain and despair in the rehabs, and I lived it. That's suffering. Mm-hmm. Prep is not suffering. What are you talking about? You're hungry and you're tired. That's it. You got to do stuff that you don't want to do. That's it. Like that's not suffering. It's a choice. So yeah. So overcoming those struggles made everything else in my life easier to deal with. Mm-hmm. So it was maybe a curse before, but now it's a blessing, because I feel like whatever could happen to me, I know how to deal with it now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's such a good message, especially to share with people who are listening to this that think that they are a victim of their circumstances and think that there's nothing that they can do to escape this misery. But the fact is that everything is within your control. And when you realize and accept that most of the hardships in your life, or at least the majority of the hardships in your life, unless somebody has gone and done something horrible to you, at least the outcome of what happens next is a conscious choice that you get to make. And can be either really overwhelming or really empowering, depending on the type of person, because what that means is that what happens next is up to you, and you get to decide what that future is going to be for yourself. And, I love that you kind of said that, because, in my little kind of corner of the internet, I don't have a gigantic following, but I even speak about it sometimes. And I think that's actually a good thing to correct, when people talk about training is suffering and discipline is suffering, and that's what leads to happiness and satisfaction. But that's a bit of a naive perspective on the world, because I think a lot of people don't understand nowadays really how bad it can get, because our society, at least in Western society, and everything is so easy. Everything is handed to us. Like you said, kids are growing up with participation trophies, eighth place trophies in soccer games. And rather than people teaching young individuals how to cope with the difficulties of life, how to lose, how to be a good loser, and how to overcome loss, they're just making everything safer. But that doesn't translate to the real world, right? When you end up in a situation like you were in, where life kind of kicks your ass for a while, whether some of that was your own decision or whether past trauma or whatever kind of leads people to that place, young people that never learn how to cope with loss or cope with losing end up in a very bad place, because then they do become victims of those circumstances, right? They don't know how to overcome. So I guess I wanted to ask you how much, or when you did kind of get to that low place, or whatever your rock bottom was, what made you finally decide to make the mindset shift and get out of that lifestyle for good and really 100% commit your life to professional bodybuilding from that point on?
Well, I've hit many rock bottoms, and I guess the first ones I thought, oh, this is the lowest point. But then when you have like really bad habits and addiction, your brain has so much momentum, and then it takes a while for those connections to prune and to rewire your brain. Plus, I think if people who go back like I did to using drugs, they didn't suffer enough yet. And at some point I really had to make a choice. It's either I keep going on this path and I'm going to become a failure, loser. I'll become maybe that crazy guy talking to himself in the street, who knows, or I can go over there and I can be a champion. And I always knew in my heart that this party thing wouldn't last. But it's just when I decided to stop and I couldn't anymore, this is when I knew, like, oh shit, I fucked myself with this one. Because when my friend overdosed on Christmas Eve in 2014, and then January 5th, 2015, I actually did a video about that on my YouTube. I said, hey, I was away because of that, and I got into really bad habits and I got addicted. Then I said, okay, now I'm coming back. 3 weeks later, I relapsed. Like, it was stronger than me, because my brain was used that as soon as I feel an emotion, I go to drugs. Right. I feel sad, I want to be happy, I use drugs. I feel happy, I want to celebrate, I use drugs. It's sunny, I use drugs. It rains, I use drugs. I'm upset, I use drugs. I'm bored, I use drugs. So my brain was used to, like, as soon as there's something, it goes to the instant reward of that high. Right. So it's like a dog. You give a dog you make him sit. You give a dog a treat. After a while, he's gonna salivate, because the brain. That's how our brains work. We're a creature of a habit. I did it so much with the hard drugs that I really got myself addicted really bad. So when I wanted to stop, because my friend died, I was like, okay, wake up call, party's over. I couldn't stop. Right. So I moved away from Montreal. I had a girlfriend back then, and then even that didn't stop me. And then I went to my first rehab, because I did 4 of them. I went to my first rehab. 3 days later, I relapsed again as soon as I was by myself after 45 days in rehab. You would think, like, this guy's insane. Yeah, I was, because I told myself, oh, I'm going to just do it this time. It's going to be different than before. Like, doing the same thing with taking different outcomes, that's insanity. That's one of the descriptions, I guess, of it. Then I went 6 months, and the second one, I lasted a month. Wow. And then I did 3 months, and then I was good for 6 months. And then I went on the most craziest bender ever in my life. And this is where I got my last rock bottom. After that, that was 3 months and a half, that last rehab I did. And I already knew everything by then, because I did 3 rehabs. So I was like just going through the motion, and the reason why I relapsed last time is because of anger. I was so angry that I reached a level that I didn't give a shit about anything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to really learn how to deal with anger. And then I had a little slip 9 months later, but I cut myself. It wasn't like using drugs. I felt like it was just weird that I went out and drank and partied a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back to the program. But but since then, I've been good. But I never stopped working on it.
Mm-hmm.
I know if I just let myself go, if I'm complacent, it's going to catch up back to me. It's like a race against the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Go down, devil catches you.
Right.
I'm always proactive. I'm always looking for the next thing to do, to be to work on my spirituality, to work on my recovery, and just stay conscious. Not let the mind control me and stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of like the little like a little recap of all the rehabs and stuff. And just to say that I wanted to stop, but I couldn't because my brain was addicted. Simple as that. And it took a while for my brain to be rewired. I was obsessing every day about using drugs or not using drugs.
Mm-hmm.
That was all I was thinking about. So it was pretty crazy. But I did, the rehabs were effective. But yeah, I really had to want it. But I knew in my heart that I was not supposed to do that. That wasn't my goal, because I had a purpose. That's what helped me out in the rehabs. And I would see the other guys. Because I did the different rehabs. I did some of them that were with rich people, private ones, and I did some of them that were homeless people.
Mm-hmm.
And people with no purpose, it's really hard for them to stop doing what they're doing, because they're like, why would I stop?
Mm-hmm.
For me, I knew that I had to get – I was somewhere before. I won my pro card. People were watching me, and this is who I was. And then I became somebody else. But I knew that wasn't me. So that purpose was also motivation for me to get back to my old self and stop doing whatever I was doing.
Yeah, that sounds very similar to actually the first podcast that I did with a friend of mine, Joel Blanton. He's a professional MMA fighter, and he's actually 6-time world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But he put himself in prison in the earlier kind of stages of his career, and same sort of situation where he actually ended up going to jail because he was defending himself from a guy that tried to stab him. But he ended up in that situation because he was hanging around with the wrong people, going out with the wrong intentions, and ultimately it was his fault that he still ended up there. And he was explaining kind of this wake up call moment where he was sitting in his classroom, because they do kind of like you can get your associates or something like, or your associate's degree, and it takes time off your sentence. And so he's sitting there with these thugs and drug dealers and just kind of like low life people. And he's looking around and he's like, how the fuck did I get myself here surrounded with these people? And it sounds very similar to you, where in your mind, while you're kind of going through the partying and going through the motions, and at times things probably seem fun, and then you kind of have this moment where you end up in this place, you're like, am I really like these people? Am I really part of this demographic? And yeah, it's just kind of like those humbling moments where you have to actually look at what the source of the problem is. And I think that is the main issue for a lot of people, because there's always a reason and always something that people are trying to escape when they go back to addictions. And it might not even just be drugs. Like, it can be food. People cope with their stress or feelings of self-worth by eating themselves to death. It could be smoking, dealing with your stress that way. It could be porn. That's a huge problem for a lot of guys, and they don't even realize how addictive it is. But that's there are things that are addictive that might not be immediately dangerous to your health, but it can still tear your life apart. And I think that's one thing that's kind of like important for people to remember, especially if they're dealing with a friend that is dealing with an addiction, is, like you were saying, you got to a point where you wanted to stop and you couldn't. So it's a lot more complicated than that, because when you feed into these addictions, you know, and feed the impulse, the science has proved that it actually gets easier and easier every time to become more addicted to that substance, every time that you feed into the impulse, which I think is why it's so hard, even for guys like you who have a purpose, and especially for people who don't have a hope in their life, to get out of that situation.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy because I was reading this book, Atomic Habits, and from it I got a lot of stuff. But the one thing I got is that if you do something once, it's not too bad. If you do it twice, just watch yourself. And if you do it 3 times, like, it's going to be way easier to do 4, 5, 6. Like, as soon as you repeat something, the brain just like likes the repetition. It's going to be stuck there. And it's easy to repeat stuff that feels good. So this is where we get to the trap. But also, if you want to start a new habit, a good habit, doing it once is going to be okay. Then 2 is going to be hard. And then 3 gets easier. 4 gets easier. As you repeat it, it gets easier. But if you do it with something that feels good, it's way more motivating to do it more often. This is where it's tricky. So let's say, for example, if somebody is just drinking, but then he's going to go out, he's going to do some blow. Just one time, it won't matter. But the brain remembers it feels really good. So the next time he goes out, maybe he doesn't do some, but then the 3rd time he says, oh, yeah, you got some? Oh, last time I did it, I'll try again. He's done it twice. Now the 3rd time he's going to go out and drink, he's going to want that. And then 4, 5, 6 times, 7 times, and then boom, he's addicted. Every time he drinks, as soon as he feels tipsy, he wants to go. So this is how it works. This is how you get addicted. It's just your brain is made to be a pattern machine. So this is why for me, training is so easy, because every day it's part of my personality now. It's part of my personality since I'm like 16 years old, since I'm a kid pretty much. So for me, it's second nature. It's like if I don't train, I feel weird. But if you use drugs every day, that becomes part of your personality. You become an addict. And then personality is hard to change. That's why for me, the only thing that would make me stop is I would have to be in a place 24/7 locked up with people in recovery, with counselors, like the rehabs. So when people tell me, like, I don't know how to stop using drugs, I'm like, go to rehab. But people don't want to do that. They have excuses. Oh, no, I work, this and that. You're going to lose all of that if you don't go to rehab anyway. So for me, the best way, seriously, if you have an addiction problem right now, the best way to stop the fastest possible is to put yourself into rehab. Put your ego aside, humble yourself, check yourself into rehab. Even if it's pricey or not, even if it's like for homeless people, check yourself into rehab. That's the easiest, the most effective way. For me, at least it was. Because I tried by myself after that. I went to rehab and I was like, I'll just try. I'll stop. I would stop 2 weeks. I would relapse. Because my brain the habit is there still. The instant reward is still there. The craving is there. The obsession is there. But if you're in rehab, you know it's not around. And then you learn how to deal with those things. Then the longer you're in the rehab, like those 6 months they were great. The 3 months ones are great because after 4 weeks of not using drugs every day and doing recovery stuff, taking care of yourself, doing the classes, you don't want to use as much. It works because your brain is having new habits, a new environment. But the thing is, if you go out and you put yourself back into your old environment, the brain remembers everything and your whole habits kick in again.
Right.
So go to rehab, but then after the rehab, don't go where you were before. Don't go with the same people. Change everything. Like when I was using drugs, I would run away from my life. And I would go to this other world I was creating for myself with all these different people. But then if I would go to rehab, if I put myself back into those same people, I'm going to relapse again. That's how it works. It's not because you can't control yourself. It's because your brain just works like that.
Mm-hmm.
But now this is why right now it's so good for me. My environment is the best. Nobody uses drugs. Nobody is like a heavy drinker. Everybody works out in the gym. We have the Pure Muscle and Fitness gym. Everybody competes and does all this stuff. Everybody's about like being proactive and businesses and things like that. Like, this is the best environment. I don't even think about using drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't crave it of course I have thoughts in my head because sometimes I get triggers, but I can deal with that now. It's not a problem anymore.
Right.
So, but at first it was hard because if you put yourself, like I said, back into the same environment, you're fucking yourself up.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's an important thing to remember. And you kind of hit the nail on the head, was that we are these pattern making machines. And the thing about addiction is, and habits in general, we do it with everything, not just addictions, but we associate feelings with our environments or places. And so even if it's like, for the average person, maybe it's on Friday nights, they associate eating pizza and popcorn with Netflix. And so that becomes the habit, or a particular show, especially now that everything is binge watch. You know, you want to go watch Bird Box or whatever. That becomes the habit. And it's the same thing with drug use or any other kind of addiction, where now you go to a certain place and you associate that place and that particular environment with doing drugs, right? Or like you were talking about, that sort of development of the weekend drinker into the coke addict. You start to associate drinking with smoking, or drinking with a bump every now and then you go to your favorite bar with the same losers and you drink the same drinks, and then at 2 a.m. at the same time you go to the same place to do the same drugs, and that becomes your lifestyle. And while negative momentum is extremely powerful, what you said is essentially that positive momentum can be equally as powerful. What you're doing is you're creating new habits. And I think that's kind of a good transition into the next thing I wanted to talk about, because you kind of mentioned Pure Muscle Fitness. You know, I've been a bodybuilding fan since I was a young kid, because Arnold Schwarzenegger was just my dad's hero. He was idolized in our household. And, you know, I think I watched Pumping Iron for the first time when I was 13 years old, and just seeing that camaraderie between Arnold and Franco and the other guys at Gold's Gym, and just this energy and positivity that kind of surrounded these men pushing each other and competing at a high level and keeping each other accountable, and even joking around and causing some fun with each other as well. That was what kind of originally attracted me to training, because I was in a similar place as you as well, where I'll disclose, where I was just getting fucked up every weekend, you know, just drinking heavily 3-4 times a week because I didn't have anything going on in my life, and I felt like I didn't have any control over my life. I ended up developing a weed habit, which everyone seems to think is not possible. But when it gets to a point where you have to smoke weed to cope with your life, and you create a habit around it, where you're just getting blitzed every night to avoid everything, you know, that's possible too. Maybe you're not going to necessarily immediately end up, you know, in a crack house somewhere, but you're still creating roadblocks to get to the next level in your life. And so now that I've been kind of watching and following your stuff with the Pure Muscle and Fitness guys, and you're just talking about this positive environment that you have, and I wanted to ask you how important having that brotherhood and camaraderie and support from other bodybuilders kind of surrounding you, how important that's been, not only for your recovery, but ultimately for furthering your career in bodybuilding, opening up new opportunities, like you said, new businesses, and just having an environment that's conducive to productivity.
Well, the thing with because I live in Burlington, Ontario, and the reason why I'm here is pretty much because of Doran and his wife Rachel, Noah, and the gym, and just the whole group of friends we have here. If it wasn't for, because, you know, there's a lot of people who helped me out in my early recovery. There's my friend Aaron McLean. He was my sponsor. I called him yesterday. Actually, he's still one of my best friends. Joy Hamilton helped me out at first. I stayed at his place, and my mom helped me out, of course. Plus, everybody else, a lot of people helped me out. But those are probably the main factors. Is that if it wasn't for Dorian, it would have taken me probably a longer time to come back, and it would have never been as good as now. Because here, it's pretty rare that there is like such friendship like that, like true friendship, and wanting the best for your friends, wanting your friends to succeed, and being more of like a selfless attitude. That's how Dorian is, and his brother Noah also. And if it wasn't for them, I mean, I wouldn't be here, because my whole family's in Montreal. I don't have any family here. I'm by myself with my other family, I guess. So yeah, Pure Muscle is fitness. This is why people come here and they love it so much, because Regan comes down from London, Ontario. We got guys coming over from the States sometimes, and we got the Muscle Mansion here. Quinton's downstairs. It's just like this whole like body. We're all helping each other. Yeah, I'm competing against Quinton. I'm competing against Regan in the same open class. We're gonna be on the same show at some point, but that doesn't matter. That's one day of the year. The rest of the time, we're doing the same thing that we love, the same passion, and it's great. Like, there's not a lot of places in the world that you have such camaraderie, like you said. I think Flex Lewis and his Dragons there. Now he has John De La Rosa, Rafael Brandao, and himself. And Frank was there before. But other than that, I think the Pure Muscle and Fitness is the place. It's the new mecca. Because back in Venice, California, that was great in the 90s, in the early 2000s. Now, people go there for content. They don't, and it's very competitive. Everybody wants to be somebody. Everybody's competitive. That's the vibe I get. It's kind of fake.
Right.
It's kind of fake. The East Coast is a little bit better for that. Like Jersey and New York is more less fake. I'm not hating there. I'm just saying that's how I feel. But,
yeah, well, you see everybody that's kind of an influencer, and everybody kind of goes there to get the photos with the murals on the wall and stuff like that. But yeah, like you're saying, you don't see that like true sort of brotherhood where you can see that those guys are friends, and you can see that they're pushing each other, and they eat their fucking boiled chicken and rice together, and that's part of their lifestyle, and that's what's moving them all forward together so they can all succeed.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, Pure Muscle Fitness is probably the best gym in the world. Also for content, like you say an influencer, which is funny because I laugh about that with my girlfriend and stuff sometimes, and it's just that it's so funny that now everybody's an influencer. But I'm an influencer too, and it happened that I became that by mistake. I used to create content back in 2000, like before YouTube. I used to do the flipping videos. I would upload them on a server. People would download them, put a message boards, and I would post. So when YouTube came along, I started putting videos on there. But before that, there was no copyright songs. There was no ads on there. It was just like a platform you could upload on there.
Yeah.
And then I did my whole drug spree there for 5 years or whatever. After I became pro, then when I came back, I was like, "Oh my God, this is a thing now." YouTube is a thing. Being a YouTuber is a thing. Influencer is a thing, and I had to play catch up. But it's like, because I'm right now, seriously, I'm pretty much doing the same thing I was doing when I was 15 years old, but I'm getting paid for it.
Yeah,
which is hilarious.
Yeah, you were just doing that for free, for fun on some forum site or whatever, and now it's like that's a job that people are trying to get right now.
Exactly. They want to try to be an influencer so hard, and I just fell on it. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm an influencer. Great. But I'm more of an athlete, professional athlete first in my head.
Yeah. And
I do stuff all related to bodybuilding. But creating content, I like content creator more than influencer.
Yeah. Do you create all your own videos and all that kind of production and stuff like that on YouTube? Is that all you got?
I've been filming my own stuff since forever. Like me and my friend Juji Mufu. I don't know if you know Juji Mufu.
Yeah, I love his stuff.
Yeah. It's
fucking hilarious.
We both started very young to do our own videos, our own content, and I think probably me and him or the first collab between two influencers. When I was 16, 2004, I went to stay at his place and we filmed a bunch of videos.
You knew him that long ago?
It's 2002.
That's wild. Yeah.
Yeah,
because he's got a gigantic following now too.
Which is hilarious because when we first started out, we were both doing the same thing. We became friends in 2002 through email and AIM, like AOL, whatever. And now sometimes we're just without planning it, we just end up at the Arnold Classic. He has his own booth. I'm with a sponsor, whatever. They were like, this is so weird that we both started out as on our own way and we just ended up in the same place.
Yeah.
So it's pretty rare. It's like that's one of the best friendships I have also. So it's pretty cool that we still talk and hang out. I'm very happy about that.
Yeah. I love his stuff. And I thought it was cool that, because you always wonder how strong he really is, right? Because so many of his videos are just like these hilarious, like, like kind of goofy videos. And he started out, I remember that one famous video of him where he's got all the fucking bands on. And he's, he's got like the 50 bands and he's got benching like 315 and he's floating around in this like band cage. And
I know.
And then to see him go, and I think he did the powerlifting competition at
the hybrid one with Steffi Cohen.
Yeah, the hybrid powerlifting competition. And like, holy fuck, I was so impressed seeing him go and lift. And, I think he squatted like 666 or something like that. I think he deadlifted the same weight, but yeah, he's a serious athlete. It's cool. It's just, that's why I love guys that like you and him who do actually have a sense of humor. The thing is, like, you do get a lot of these kind of fitness influencers and stuff like that, where it seems very put on, and both your guys' accounts seem very genuine, and that's who you are, kind of outside of the mirror posing really close to the mirror so the arms look huge and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I try to be. If people would talk to me in real life and they would just see me online, I'm pretty much the same thing. Maybe when I speak on my stories, I have more intonations, or maybe not, I don't know. But I'm pretty much the same person. I don't try to be somebody else because so far being me brought me what I have. So I'm not going to change anything. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, and it's great.
Totally. So yeah, I was going to ask you, since this is kind of like a pretty new thing too, is I wanted you to tell me a little bit about your new sponsor, HD Muscle. We talked a little bit about before the podcast started, and just ask you, like, what's your involvement with the company, who's behind it, and maybe you can kind of tell us about some of your favorite products, and this might be a good opportunity to plug the new sponsor.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we just came out with this brand, HD Muscle, but in reality, we've been working on it for over 2 years, and it's been a long-term project, and now it's finally out. And it's Noah and his brother Dorian, which is my coach, and Adam, which is also Dorian's like childhood, like oldest friend. They were both babies when they became friends. And then there's me that's a part of it, and I have a little part of it, but I'm more like the promotional part, I guess, just like sponsored athlete kind of thing. But yeah, it's great because now instead of supporting a brand that's from the US that somebody else owns, now I'm actually promoting something that I'm a part of with my friends, that I'm already a part of with the gym and all these things. So it's just perfect. And I mean, my favorite products right now, I like the Pre-HD Ultras, the classic pre-workout that we have, but there's 8 rounds of citrulline in it. It's just really good. And the cool thing now is that because we're making our own products, and because Dorian is so like precise and just like anal about all the ingredients, it's like the formulas are just the best. They're just the best that there is on the market. You compare it to the other brands, you can just go on their website, you can just compare it. And we made it this way because we want products that really, really work with clinical dose and more, and just like new stuff that's coming out that's in there also. Because the other companies won't do that because they want to make a lot of money. Like some companies are already popular. Their products might cost like $6 or something per pre-workout, and they sell it $50.
Yeah,
like no way we have that type of like margin, because we actually have full doses of the best type of like ingredients in it. And also, let's say, for example, like just the caffeine, we have the pure calf patent. So actually pay more money to get that pure calf. That's like just the best type of caffeine there is with the pre-workout. Other companies will just put caffeine and hydrous from China, for example.
Right. Yeah.
But we got the best of all even the glycerol, the glycerol. We have the best glycerol. We got the best, citrulline. We got the best EAAs, which is amino 9, I think from Germany or something. So it's just the products are so loaded with stuff. But I think now what's going to happen is that other brands will start doing that also. They will stop doing the pixie dust, kind of like, like when they had little stars, it's a blend. You don't even know what's in it.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of the U.S. companies do that. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. But now I think the companies will notice that this is where it's going now. People are smarter, more educated now, and it will become more educated. So the next wave of supplement companies will be more like the one we have. So I think we're just kind of like ahead of the curve here. We're the first ones like really putting quality over everything else. And this is why one of our slogans is integrity is everything, because Dorian, just with the gym, Pure Muscle and Fitness, it's all the best equipment. There is not one piece in there. There's another purpose why it's there that he didn't choose. Because some gyms will get, for example, Hammer Strength or Life Fitness will say, I got all these machines, $20,000. So wait, you cannot choose them. It's that price for all of those.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good price. And there's like a shitty freaking leg curl in there you don't want.
Yeah. Everything's made of plastic and
yeah, whatever. But Dorian really chose like single pieces from different brands like Panata, Atlantis, Fitland from Spain, like all little different brands that we saw on the internet, like from the Oxygen Gym in Kuwait, or just another video we saw that this one looks good, and when he just orders it. So the time he put into choosing the machines to make sure we have the best of the best, the same values he puts in the HD muscle supplements. So that's why it's very, like we say, integrity is everything, because it's the first time I'm behind a brand and I'm 100% like, yeah, I have no problem pushing that product. I have no problem pushing it because I know it's the best, So it's pretty cool to be a part of that. And another product I like actually is a Carb HD, because it just tastes so good right now because I'm in prep. Strawberry kiwi flavor. It's custard dextrin, and the Carb 10, which is comes from pea starch or something. It's like a prebiotics. It's good for the gut and digestion. So it's a mix of those two carbs. But if you go on hdmuscle.com, all the details are there. You can see all the products. We have a stimulant-free pre-workout. We have a super high stim, only available in the US, called Pre-HD Black, which is really good. I was tired yesterday. I took it, and it really works.
Nice.
Yeah, I use it just on certain workouts.
It's like leg day only.
Yeah, leg day, or if you're tired in prep, like very tired, you use that. I was like, wow. It was a good workout. But yeah, so they're pretty pumped about it. And we're actually having a sale right now on the website, a deal. It's like if you spend over $99 and use the code like AV or whatever athlete's code you want, you get free shipping. So it's good for the Americans and the Canadians.
Right on.
Another deal. By the time I think you release that video, there's going to be another one that I'll do a little preview. As you spend more, you get like freebies, like T-shirts and bottles and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's pretty cool to be part of that, because it just makes sense, now that sometimes people they're paid athletes. They kind of like sell out a little bit. Oh, I use this shoe prosthetic thing, just because they give me $3,000 to say that post.
Yeah.
Now I'm pretty much all the companies I'm behind. I'm pretty happy because I just love them. It's like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, right? Because like at one point someone will be promoting a particular product and it's the best pre-workout they've ever tried, and then 6 months later they got a new product that's the best pre-workout they've ever tried. And to be actually invested in the company and be able to stand behind something that really works, and even just everything surrounding this brand I've been really interested in, because like you said, like it's all the same guys working together on the same projects, whether it's the gym or it's HD Muscle. And it's very obvious that the passion goes into that as well, and people will start to connect the two, and that's really powerful, I think, at least as far as the brand goes. I think another thing that people don't entirely understand, obviously because you're from Canada and I'm from Vancouver as well, is how expensive it actually is to start a supplement company based in Canada. The licensing and the approval to actually get the products approved in Canada is much more thorough than it is obviously in the US. You can't just have these proprietary blends of whatever, where it's like 25 milligrams of the psychonaut stim complex or whatever. Like, you guys have to go and show what's contained in these products. And so there's no hiding behind these kind of blends. You can show them what's in there, right?
Yeah, it's all transparent. All our products are transparent. You see the amounts of everything. You see the ingredients, and also it's as natural as possible. Like the sweeteners, we use when we can. We use very natural, like a stevia and monk fruit, for example. And sometimes we use sucralose a little bit for it because the EAAs. Do you ever tasted and smelled EAAs by themselves?
No.
Oh my god, it smells like wet dog. So sometimes we use a little bit of sucralose, but yeah, if we're all our products are transparent there. So there's no like hidden ingredients or things like that. And we had to work with a formulator and a manufacturer. And it was a long process. It was like 2 years. Like I was with another company before that because I was like, I got to make some, I got to make a living. So that's why I was with another sponsor before. But in the back of my mind and stuff, I was working with the guys to use that because that's the end goal, right? Why would you want to work for somebody else when you can actually work for yourself and your friends? That's the better version. But yeah.
Well, the thing about that too is then you have control over the brand, you have control over the message, and the other thing is too, which is kind of really interesting about athletes and even salespeople, is that they're essentially the ones who are driving the revenue for the company, right? So you've got this gigantic following, 286,000 people. So to be able to use that to leverage something that you actually have a piece of and you're proud of is so much more powerful than kind of being at the mercy of what these brands want to tell you what to do. But before I sign off, I just want to make sure that everybody can find you on social media. So maybe you can go ahead and just let us know what your kind of social media accounts are, where they can find you on YouTube so that they can actually follow you leading up to the Arnold.
Yeah. So my Instagram is at Antoine V87. And my YouTube is youtube.com/Antoine VAI. But I think if you type my name, you can see and subscribe really easily. And I got my website, avbodybuilding.com. And through there, you can buy like the online trading. You can go to the Pure Muscle Fitness shop and buy some T-shirts. You can see all my sponsors right away: Most Strength, Herb Strong, HD Muscle, Pure Muscle Fitness, all that stuff. It's all on my website, avbodybuilding.com. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. I mean, if you want to reach out to me, Instagram is probably like AZ, send me a DM. I try to go through them. And there's also a contact with my email, I think in the bio and stuff. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for my contact information. Yeah.
Wicked. Well, this has been a great conversation. Again, I really appreciate you coming on, and good luck leading up to the Arnold. I think you're going to do great, and you're looking awesome in all your prep photos and things like that. So, yeah, thanks for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Barbaric Wisdom.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Barbaric Wisdom. I'm Bronson Lee Norton. If you've been enjoying the podcast so far, be sure to subscribe to stay updated on the latest episodes. If you would like to show your support and help us continue to be able to bring your favorite guests onto the show, head on over to www.patreon.com/barbaricwisdom. That's www.patreon.com/barbaricwisdom.